legal correspondent, former litigator Lisa Rubin. Her new piece on Msnbc.com is titled, "Forget the F-Bomb. One email really stands out in Emile Beauvais whistleblower's records." Lisa, good morning. Good to see you. Before we get to that email that stands out to you, I think it's worth taking a step back, reminding people who Emile Beauvais is exactly and why there is this whistleblower complaint against him.
So, Willie, Emile Beauvais is now the Principal Assistant Deputy Attorney General. That's a nice way of saying he is the second in command to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. But more importantly, for these purposes, he is also a nominee to a lifetime tenured position on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. That's the federal appeals court that oversees Delaware and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And Emile Beauvais has found himself in a bunch of controversies already in the very short time since the Trump administration has been back in power. Most importantly, he was the chief lawyer who helped architect the deal with Eric Adams. He defended that deal in court and got the Eric Adams indictment dismissed, leading to the resignation or firings of multiple Justice Department lawyers. Emile Beauvais is also at the center, according to a former immigration lawyer at the Department of Justice named Erez Ruveni, who you just discussed. Emile Beauvais, according to him, is at the center of the administration's legal strategy with respect to its immigration agenda. Everything from that Alien Enemies Act case that resulted from the administration flying over 100 Venezuelan men under the Alien Enemies Act to El Salvador, imprisoning them there, to the case of Kimar Abrego Garcia, the El Salvadoran man who was also on one of those flights and was wrongfully imprisoned at CCOT for several months before he was ultimately returned to the United States on a criminal indictment.
So, Lisa, let's talk about that email that jumped out to you, and also just this bigger picture here.
Yes.
The idea that if he can't be trusted to follow through on a court order on this particular case, what does that say about him having a Senate-confirmed position?
It's really scary, right? Because the Senate is being asked to confirm Emile Beauvais as a judge to a federal appeals court, where his responsibilities are going to be reviewing lower court orders and, where appropriate, upholding them. If you can't follow a court order, the idea that you would then be put in a position to uphold the orders of lower courts themselves is very scary. And let's talk about that email, Jonathan, if we can, because the email that jumps out to me, there's been a lot of press coverage of Emile Beauvais convening a meeting, according to Erez Ruveni, before the Alien Enemies Act flights took off, and telling people at the Department of Justice in a small meeting that they should be prepared to tell the courts F you if the courts were to issue a contrary order blocking them. Put that aside for a second. To me, what's far more pernicious is an email from another department lawyer named Yaakov Roth, where he is telling Erez Ruveni and a couple of other people that he had been told by Todd Blanche's office that Emile Beauvais advised the Department of Homeland Security that it was okay to take people off of those flights in El Salvador after they had landed, even though the federal judge here, Judge Jim Boasberg, had told the Department of Justice in no uncertain terms on a call that was transcribed, you must turn these planes around. And nonetheless, what does Emile Beauvais do? According to a colleague of his, he tells the Department of Homeland Security, not only is it safe for the planes to land, go ahead and deplane those people. What happens after you deplane them? Those guys go to CCOT in the footage that we all saw.
Lisa, it's Sam Stein here. I have two questions. One is, what is the actual correct pronunciation of Emile Beauvais? No, that's not my real question, although I am confused about the actual pronunciation. My question is just to step back a little bit. He's nominated for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Even before this whistleblower complaint and these emails were produced, there was real questions about the nomination in legal circles because he is such a loyalist, because of the work that he did dropping the charges into Eric Adams, because of the fact that he had fired some of the prosecutors who were handling J6 cases. Putting aside the politics, if we can, just talk a little bit about how shocking this has been in legal circles, where you have even Federalist Society types saying we cannot have people on the judiciary who are just mere loyalists to the president.
Well, first of all, his name is pronounced Emile Beauvais. He is perhaps the best-known figure in Trump world with the worst-pronounced name. But let's go back to the question that you asked about how shocking is it that Emile Beauvais has been nominated to this position. Not shocking at all, because what the president really prioritizes, Sam, over winning is fidelity to him at all costs. Performance is totally secondary to are you willing to execute on his orders. We should not be surprised that that is the litmus test for Trump nominations. It's not ideological purity. It is, are you full in with this administration? So by that stretch of the imagination, this isn't shocking. However, you are right to say that for legal observers, the sort of thumbing your nose at the rule of law that you can see from Emil Bovee, and more importantly, from a host of other people in the Trump administration across these emails, I hope we'll have an opportunity to talk about what else is in Erez Ruveiny's texts and emails, because across the board, you are seeing a group of people that are thinking first and foremost about their policy objectives, and secondarily about how to evade sort of discipline by the court. There's one point at which someone asks Erez Ruveyny, as a State Department official, says, what would be the consequences of ignoring a court order? And Ruveyny is sort of flummoxed by that. And one of the things he says in response that I think puts the lie to the accusation that he is just a disgruntled partisan who wants to take Emil Bovee down is what he says in response, which is, if we were to ignore a court order that comes down, one of the consequences here is that we would make bad law that would put a whole host of other immigration priorities this administration has at risk. That's not the statement of somebody who's looking to take the Trump administration, much less Emil Bovee, down. That's somebody who's being pragmatic and saying, you have lots of things that you want to do. And if you flout a court order with respect to a particular individual, here he's referring to Kilma Roberto Garcia, you're putting your entire agenda at risk. That's not what somebody says when they're, a radical progressive.
Right. And just speaking truth to power there. I mean, I remember at the beginning of the first term when President Trump then in 2017 attacked a judge on the West Coast. I think he was out of Washington State, and I spoke with somebody close to a federal judge who's very conservative, a Federal Society judge, and they said then, and the truth then still holds now, as Lisa was just basically suggesting, an attack against one federal judge is seen as an attack against all federal judges, regardless of ideology. You ignore one order, you have just put yourself in line for a lot more problems in immigration cases and other cases as well. It's just that simple. That's a reality. And yeah, nobody's like a left-wing ideologue for suggesting that. That's just the truth. You just make your job much harder.
MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, thank you.